So they have just drawn the new season of the Champions League, and with the new format being a little bit complicated, Arsenal finally know the teams that they will be playing home and away this year. Now while the schedule isn't up yet, we're going to go through every single team and what my expectations are for Arsenal in this competition, so let's get into it. Now if you're not familiar with the recent Champions League changes, you probably would have been quite confused by this draw. Now I'm not going to go into it too much because there's so many other videos on the internet about it, but overall the move from 6 games to 8 happens in the group stage, and you can get home and away games at any point. Now while being in a certain pot necessarily doesn't matter, I think it's still much more beneficial to probably be in the higher pot, just because you then have less of a chance of playing bigger teams if you're amongst it rather than being on the outside. And overall Arsenal were in pot 2, and I'm sure they'll be in pot 1 in a few years time. Now going into this draw knowing that we could not draw English teams, which obviously is a massive benefit, I think they're some of amongst the best teams in the competition, it did limit us in certain aspects, especially when it came to pot 1 of who we were actually going to be able to get. Now overall I'm going to say with the whole draw I'm very satisfied, but I do think there's a lot of good tests in there, but sometimes I think it is beneficial that you get these tests against different oppositions, especially from abroad. It can only make you better getting the reps in. Now from pot 1 Arsenal ended up getting Inter Milan away and PSG at home. Now going into the draw I definitely wanted a team at home that I felt Arsenal could definitely beat. Getting someone like Real Madrid or even Bayern Munich at home, we definitely could be on our day, but it was going to be a bit of a pain in the arse, which I didn't really want Arsenal to deal with. Personally, PSG are a very high transitional side, and I do think they're obviously going to bring some threat, but they're not great in the Champions League historically, and without Mbappe, they're definitely a lot weaker than they were last year. And I do think that the fact that they play consistent reps against other French teams who aren't very good limits them in the Champions League stage because they're maybe not ready for these games. And honestly, I think Arsenal should be going into that game thinking they're going to win it, and I think out of any of the teams in there, that's one of the ones I would have taken the most. Now Inter Milan away is actually not the case either. Now it may seem weird because Inter haven't been great in Europe over the last few years, which is completely true, but obviously the San Siro is a historic stadium. We know what the stadium can be like, and obviously we have our own history in that stadium of course. Inter Milan play a very different system to what Arsenal will be used to playing. They play a 5-back, they've got very attacking wing backs, very aggressive style of football, and while it may be primed to leave gaps in behind, they're a very good transitional side as well and have a proper front line. And overall every time I see teams go to the San Siro, at least in Europe, they do struggle with the crowd, or so be it the teams play well. And Inter Milan are clearly the best team in Italy right now. They're the Italian champions, and I think it's an incredible threat for Arsenal, but I do think Arsenal should probably at least try and get a draw from it, but ultimately I don't think it's going to matter too much in the end with our other games. Now while that one's up in the air a little bit, when we get to pot 2 I do think Arsenal have been blessed in many ways. Going into this draw I did not want Arsenal to play some of these teams exclusively. Juventus look really good under Thiago Motta with a new regime. Atletico Madrid are just an annoying team to play. They're not defensive as much as they were anymore, but sometimes in the Champions League they can be. And obviously we know what Leverkusen are like with how great they won the double last year. However, I would have taken a German team because of their high lines. I even think games against Benfica and Milan may not be the best teams in the world, but going away to them teams is always going to be a very big pain. And that leads on to the fact that we did get Atalanta away. Atalanta obviously won the Europa League, brilliant team, but more crucially are under a brilliant manager, Gasperini, who's someone I look up to a lot. I think he's a brilliant manager. They also play football where they do limit the opposition. He's very smart manager in that sense. And yet again, I think it's another game where Arsenal are playing a team that they are better than. We have better players than Atalanta overall, but we get to go to an environment which I don't think is as hostile as some of the environments on here, but at least a little bit hostile in a big game for Atalanta with a great manager. And honestly, I like these games where we get to practice with the squad and improve no matter what, but also playing against good formidable oppositions with brilliant managers. So I think it's, yet again, I would say out of all the away games, it's one of the ones I definitely would have taken in this draw. And Shakhtar at home, I think they're probably the weakest team in the draw in our pot 2. Maybe you can argue Club Brugge, but they were quite good last year in the Champions League. We take Shakhtar at home every day of the week, and it continues, I think, the joy of the home games that we've got. And this leads on to the third pot that Arsenal will be playing. Got Dynamo Zagreb at home and Sporting CP away. Now Dynamo Zagreb at home is definitely a beneficial team. We've played them quite a lot historically in the past, not for a few years now, but obviously we have played them before. And I think when you look at all the home games that we could have got in this one, I think obviously Arsenal would probably win all of them, you've got to say, but games against Feyenoord, PSV, I think would have been quite hard, and even maybe Lille could definitely give us a game. Now when it comes to the away games, I felt like this pot was a lot different. There's some real hostile environments environments, Red Star Belgrade, for instance, even the Dutch ones with Feyenoord and PSV, and of course even Celtic, which can be dangerous on its day. And arguably we got another one of them. We got Sporting, the team we have a lot of history with, and one of the teams I didn't want to play away because I feel like they are one of the better teams. And maybe they're not good every day. They play in the Portuguese league, which is give or take, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But it's just one of them teams that turns up in the Champions League, and we've seen them before in Europe. They knocked us out of the Europa League a few years ago. So in an end, I think it's good that we can get some revenge on them, but I don't think this game is particularly that easy, even though obviously I expect us to win overall. But yeah, again, it's a good experience for the team to go to these places. Getting more of this experience is only going to help us in the long run. And now when we get to pot 4, when I heard that English teams couldn't be included with other English teams, that basically put me at rest, because obviously Aston Villa, I didn't want to play them again. And you've got former teams like Bologna and Genoa and Stuttgart have all had brilliant years in their respective top 5 leagues. I have a lot of their players have left, maybe the things aren't necessarily the same anymore, and so I didn't really think any of these teams were really going to put much of a threat on Arsenal. Now, first of all, Monaco at home I think is a great game for us. I think it's a team that are quite kind of in turmoil. They've not been brilliant for the last few years. Obviously got Balogun there, but if he plays, that'll be up in the air because he can't even start for their team at the moment. And remember when Monaco knocked us out so long ago, they knocked us out of the Champions League where we missed all them chances, and it'd be kind of nice to play a team like Monaco at the Emirates where I expect us to win, but it's a team that we also have history with and we can get one back on. I think overall our 4 home games are quite beneficial, and I kind of expect Arsenal to get 12 points or at least 10 from them, maybe thinking about the PSG game as well. And lastly, Genoa away is really cool. We didn't get any of the other Spanish teams, obviously the Real Madrid, Barcelona or Atleti, so it's really cool to get Genoa in there for the first time. Obviously lost a lot of their key players, not sure how they're going to do this season. I watched them against Atleti and they got destroyed, but obviously going away to any of these teams is going to be hard, but they're a smaller club, smaller stadium, so it's going to be kind of cool to go to one of these teams where they're still in the top 5 league. They still have players that, you know, have definitely got a lot of potential and are very good, but we get to learn even more against good oppositions, and I think this has got to be another win from us. And this is the thing, everyone's saying that Arsenal need to guaranteedly get top 8, and this is not really how this Champions League works. Now I don't know, it's not happening in real life, I can say, but it seems to me that it's going to be dependent a lot on the teams that other people play, you know, maybe luck with a draw, but also just performances on the day matter. There's no leeway anymore, there's no easy ways of getting through. I think in order to get through in the top 8, you're going to probably need around 16 points, which is about 5 wins, 1 draw, maybe 2 losses, and that might just be enough to get you through, I reckon. Obviously we've got to be looking at this as well. For getting the top 8, it means you miss a whole match day week, which obviously would benefit us. Win all our home games, I think, is the main thing, then you get 12 points, and you would expect Arsenal in the away games. I mean, we are arguably better away if anything, but it will be a different test in Europe to go away and get at least 5 or 6 points that will end up getting you through. Obviously I'm looking at the Genoa game and potentially even one of the Atalantas or Sportings where I think we should win, but given on our day they definitely could turn up and beat us. And I will say that the Champions League inherently is quite a fluky tournament, and with it being one game you play against a certain fixture, I do think it could be even flukier. So on the day some teams could surprise other teams a lot more, and because we don't know the schedule, gets released on Saturday. Our first game is in between the Man City away and that Tottenham away we've got coming up, so if that's a Inter Milan away or even a Sporting away, that could be a loss more than it would have been other way, and obviously we'd hope that's probably one of the easier games overall. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of the draw, what games you think are winnable, how many points you think Arsenal will get, and will they make it into the top 8. Thank you guys for watching, I'll see you in the next one.